Now over to Ryan Divish. We haven't talked to Divish in quite some time. Divish, how are you, sir?
Hey, what's up, dude?
Oh,
Maybe
just
you should
dying.
go to Marlboro Lights or some Zins instead
Yeah.
of the Marlboro
I don't
Red.
smoke, so don't say that. I've never had a sickness where it started in the belly and now it's transitioned to the head. And then Monday we had our first middle school basketball practice, and that probably didn't help. And now we have practice number 2 tonight, so I'm probably going to even lose it more for tomorrow. How are you? God, it's been a while. Good to see you.
I've been good. Just hanging out here in scenic North Pole, Montana, and
Oh,
like living the dream.
what's the temperature in Montana today?
It's actually nicer today than it's been. We had, well, the wind was blowing like 50 last night, and we have a winter storm advisory still. So we're supposed to get snow at some point or freezing rain, which is always fun. It's 37 out right now, so that's
Uh,
good. But it's actually we're not going to go back down in the zeros for a while. Under zero. Below zero, we had a stretch there for about a week where it got below zero a couple of days, 3 or 4 days, and that was pretty miserable. But that means usually when we're not below zero, it means the snow comes in, and you don't want the snow because that means I got to take my ass out and shovel. And then I get the call from my dad, that snowblower is not going to run itself at the house.
at least you have a snowblower.
Well, yeah, you have to have one living here. This isn't like Washington where they have one truck to sand the roads. Everybody has a snowblower or a four-wheeler with a plow on the front, or everybody now has those side by sides. The
Yeah,
little,
I saw those.
oh, those things are pretty sick. I mean,
Yeah, you got to get one of those.
yeah, no, I'm just trying to survive with not having to go out as much as possible.
Divish joins. We haven't talked to Divish a couple of weeks because of the holidays. Nothing has happened because the Mariners haven't done anything. His weekly visit brought to you by Chalet Bowl, Washington's oldest operating bowling alley, proudly serving the community since 1941, located in Tacoma's historic Proctor District. Family owned and operated for 40 years. Again, delivering top-notch customer service and a unique 12-lane experience. Check them out, chaletbowl.com, to make your next reservation. Well, how surprised are you? Maybe you're not, of the inactivity of this baseball team.
Well, I'm obviously surprised. I didn't think there would be like a myriad of moves. It wouldn't be the typical Jerry DePoto year where you're just, constantly making moves on the fringes of the roster and all that other stuff. Like, even in the impromptu press conference that you're angry about at the end of the season, he made it pretty clear that you're still angry about, and everybody else is still angry about.
I'm not
Um,
angry about it.
yeah, you guys, I would in the future prepare for those sorts of things because like the days of like the pre-spring luncheon and all those things, those
Done.
are gone the way of like uh the dodo bird and Taco John's and you know $3 beers outside of Montana.
Yeah.
Um, but like they basically had their core pretty set, so they were never going to, like their outfield is set, their shortstop is set, their catcher, their rotation, their a lot of their bullpen pieces. So like they were never going to do a lot. But I think they thought as well as I thought they would have at least one move, like one of those three positions, first base, second base, or third base. They'd have addressed it by now. And I think that's why, and they were so confident about it, is because we later learned that they offered Carlos Santana the best contract. They offered him essentially a multi-year deal. Same AAV, I believe, is what the Guardians gave, was what, 12 million. And they offered him that money. And at the last minute, Cleveland traded away Josh Naylor and went back to Santana. And the pull of going to the team that he kind of came up with and where he had lived at for a long time, where his family had lived for a long time, and closer to where his family's currently living at now, which is Kansas City, that was the draw. And he decided to go there. And I think it was crushing for the Mariners. I talked to some people within the Mariners, and like leading up to, like, they really thought they were going to sign him even after, like, when the Guardians traded Josh Naylor. That's when the Mariners like, oh wait, this could go badly for us because they're going to go after Santana. And even when the Guardians did, the Mariners kind of thought that like the pull of Julio Rodriguez and being a leader and being on that team plus multiple years might outweigh what the Guardians were offering, and it didn't. And that left them, I think and it didn't happen. I don't know if it's their one big move. I don't think they had a big move in them because, it's $15 million. What are you going to do? The only way they could have had a big move is if they traded Luis Castillo early enough so they could sign Christian Walker or sign some free agent, bat or whatever, use that money to supplement along with the 15 million you had. Like you say, you trade Castillo, I think it makes 22.75 a year. Like you trade Castillo plus that 15 million, maybe you lose 8 or 9 for the player you're bringing back. Like that gives you, 20 some million that you can play with to sign a big name guy. But otherwise, if they didn't make any moves, if they didn't trade Castillo, they weren't going to be able to afford any of the main free agents. And that's the bigger issue to me. And I've said this before, like you're a team that has missed the postseason the last 2 seasons by essentially 1.5 games. And you're sitting here now and you have to fill 3 spots. Your first baseman, your second baseman, your third baseman, first and third, premium power, like production positions. And you're having to do that in a year where you're supposed to be more complete than you really are. And let's not kid ourselves. Like they just happened upon Victor Robles. Mm-hmm. And we don't know if Victor Robles is that good, but like they took a flyer on him last year. They weren't predicting that he was going to be part of this. So it's like that if they didn't have Robles, then they'd be trying to fill 4 spots, not 3. And that's just too much. You don't see, the Yankees lost Soto and they were happy to lose Gleyber Torres, but they're not trying to fill major spots. The Dodgers, they're just supplementing. They're going out and re-adding pieces. Like the Mariners are in a position where they shouldn't have to fill this much, because if they had done the due diligence in the previous years, they would have positions locked up. And they didn't do it because they didn't have any money to do it, or they wouldn't spend the money to do it.
Where do they turn their attention now? I mean, now it feels like they've put in all their eggs into the Roki Sasaki basket. When he decides he doesn't want to play there, then what do they do? See, here's my biggest fear. My biggest fear is that they are going to panic. They're going to panic with Castillo and trade him.
And
it's
very much back.
It's just not going to be a good return.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, so and that's what, and you saw what Ken Rosenthal wrote, that teams are concerned that he's starting to work down. Like his fastball was still, like people say it's down a tick velocity wise, but it was still in the top, in terms of pitch value, it was still in the top 90% of MLB. I just thought his command was off. He didn't command his slider very well at times last year, and his changeup, wasn't as effective either. I mean, he was in a lot of bad counts, and some of the starts made his numbers look even worse. I think he's still a pretty good pitcher, and I think the Mariners would be perfectly happy just keeping him if they could do other things. But he's a 3-WAR player. Are they getting a 3-WAR hitter back in a trade? That's what you have to ask. I mean, Tristan Casas, is he a 3-WAR player? I mean, I don't know that they'll ever get value with what he. I don't know what they'll ever get the commensurate major league value in a trade for Luis Castillo unless somebody gets real desperate.
What happened there? We haven't talked since then. I mean, what happened with the whole Red Sox and Mariners deal?
Well,
were they really just not willing to take on the contract of the Japanese outfielder?
Yeah, it's an awful contract.
Right, it's terrible.
Yeah,
but in the end, would they not have saved money though?
No, not really. I mean, because it's like it was longer. And then again, like what's going to happen next year or two is like guys are going to get more expensive. Like you're bringing in a guy that can only DH. Well, they already have like 2 guys on the team that can only DH that are making a lot of money. That's the thing. Yoshida, if they would have somehow brought Yoshida in, their highest paid players other than Julio would have been Yoshida, Garver, and Haniger, 3 DHs essentially. So like, yeah, it didn't make any sense. Like, they're like, and that's the thing. And Adam and I just recorded a podcast. This will come out before ours because I'm lazy. But like making a move just for the sake of making a move to appease an angry fan base is stupid.
I agree.
You got to do, DePoto talked about making baseball moves this year. Last year, the first few moves they had to make were all about their financial moves. They're financially motivated. These are baseball motivated moves. So, look, let's be real honest here. The fan base is going to be pissed off regardless. and they're going to be pissed off at Jerry regardless, going to be pissed off at ownership regardless. So if they're always going to be pissed at you anyways, you better do what you think is best to at least win to maybe get some of the people back.
So what are the options out there? What have you heard about Castillo? Castillo being moved to acquire who? There's nothing on the free agent market.
Yeah, and I don't think that they're not going to do anything. So I think right now the market stalled a bit because, at least in the infield market, because Alonso and Bregman are still out there, and Arenado still is looking to be traded, and Arenado wants to go to the Red Sox. Well, then the Red Sox, if they trade for Arenado, then they have that same issue they had if they would have signed Bregman. Like, what do you do with Devers, who makes $300 million? You move him to first. How do you make all this work? And so that's out there. Whatever happens with Alonso, if he goes back to the Mets could have, an excess of infielders if Alonso re-signs with the Mets. You leave Vientos at third. Brett Beatty might be available. That's the thing. With even same with Sasaki. Whoever signs Sasaki, maybe if you don't get Sasaki, then the teams that don't get him get a little bit more desperate and say, okay, now let's revisit Luis Castillo. And I don't expect the Mariners to get Sasaki. I never expected him to get Sasaki. It'd be like saying that, you're going to leave your wife for the supermodel. Just not going to happen.
It could happen.
I know Megan Fox is now single. I just don't see it happening.
Not my type.
Sydney Sweeney.
Well, we would have the Spokane connection. She's an Eastern Washington gal.
Yeah.
She gets it. God's country. She understands.
Yeah, well, you're going for that kind of. I could tell you that Jenna Jameson went to Great Falls High School in Montana.
Did she really?
Yeah.
God, she was a great actress.
Yeah, but ahead
of her time.
So this is they're going to have to wait a little bit and see what the market plays. From everything I've heard about Sasaki, at least from the reporting I've seen, only 6 teams got meetings so far.
And they did not get a meeting, right?
They did not so far. They have not. Maybe they get one. Maybe they get but if you're not in the first round, and I'm sure that the Padres and Dodgers are willing, and the Cubs are willing to, try and put up a pretty good offer. And was it the Yankees, Rangers, man? What if he goes to the Rangers? So they're not, this is where they're at. So they're going to have to wait a little bit. Could they, I was just looking, and when Adam and I were talking, if they wanted to have some sort of platoon at second base, but they wanted an older guy that's a little more viable, Adam Frazier's out there. He puts the bat on the ball. Remember, they're looking for people that put the bat on the ball. They want contact. He's out there. At least you know what you're getting with Adam Frazier. Pretty good dude, not great defensively, but, Jose, I see somebody linked him to Jose Iglesias, who's 35. The free agents that are available, they're getting a little haggard. They're in their upper 30s or mid to upper 30s. I know Yohan Moncada's name has been a bounce back candidate. He was once a really high rated prospect. Mm-hmm. He's had injury issues, but it's the attitude and whether he plays hard or cares.
No thanks. No.
And that's the thing is could you imagine that guy with Cal Raleigh? How that would go over? He dogs it on something?
Yeah, so Moncada, no. They're not a chance on Alonso. They can't afford him.
No. So,
Bregman's a no.
So, here's the top. It's funny. Jurickson Profar he had one of the highest rated WARs of any player from last year that's still available. Jurickson Profar, he wants to go back to San Diego. They can't afford him. He's a really up and down player, and he really only plays left field. Bregman, no. Santander, no. Ha-Sung Kim has been mentioned, but he wants real money, and he's not even available for the first couple months of the season because of shoulder surgery. Then you're getting into Jose Iglesias, who's 35. Pete Alonso, no. Paul DeYoung, Randall Grichuk, Yasmani, then Harrison Bader. Jesse Winker was one of the few remaining free agents that put up a positive WAR last year. Turner, Mark Canha. It's not ideal, but there are pieces out there, and on some level, even Brendan Rodgers of the Rockies, maybe that's a better play than some combination of Leo Rivas and and Ryan Bliss at second base. But the big thing is, and this is where it comes back to the reputation of T-Mobile Park, do these players that maybe have to sign a 1-year deal on a prove it or a pillow contract, do they want to go to Seattle to do that? What Seattle has is they have opportunity. They have 500 plate appearances for somebody if they want to sign a 1-year deal. And then really that's what the Mariners probably should be looking at. It's a 1-year deal for somebody like Frage or Rogers or Donovan Solano or something like that. 1-year deal. We're not going to pay you a ton, incentive laden. And if it doesn't work, or if they want to make a deal at the midseason to add somebody, like if the Rays finally decide they're going to move from Brendan Lau or whatever, then you're not committed yearly to whatever people, you don't have multiple year commitment. So it makes it more difficult to move them.
Did you mention Turner yet? What's the status with Justin Turner? So how about a reunion with Ty France?
Yeah. So Turner is like, by all indications from what I've heard, he's just going to wait and see what the best fit is for him. And I'm sure like he's seeing all the movement and manipulation with the Dodgers roster right now. Lux is gone. Miguel Rojas will likely be gone. Like, look, maybe they do something now where he gets some at-bats as the first baseman DH. Freddie needs days off, whatever like that. He can go back there. Or even the Angels, maybe, where he can go stay in Southern California. I think ideally he'd prefer to stay in Southern California. And I'm sure Turner looks at it this way. Say he signs with the Angels or the lesser team. He's looking at, well, if I play well and they're out of it, then I'll get traded to a contender and then I'll be fine. But he's going to weigh his options first so he gets the best possible fit. And I think he would prefer to stay on the West Coast, though he told me once he had never signed with the Giants, the whole Dodgers-Giants thing. But, yeah, I mean, he's out there, that's an option. But, and the trade thing could still change by, like I said, once the Sasaki deal comes down or once some of these other players get signed, maybe that changes a little bit because you either have too many infielders or you decide you're going to do something, even something like the Twins possibly being sold. Maybe they want to readjust to cut down the overall payroll for a team that's going to buy them a little bit moving forward. And then you do it that way. You take advantage of that.
Do you expect something to happen before? I mean, we see trades when spring training starts, but we expect something to happen before that. I mean, we're about 5-6 weeks away?
Yeah.
January 8th. When are they going to report? Do we know that? A date?
February 12th, I think, is
February 12th. So we're 5 weeks. Yeah. 5 weeks away from them reporting.
Don't stop saying it, please. Okay.
Well, wait a minute. First of all, you got to leave the tundra and get to some sun.
Oh, I mean, I like that part, but it's like you got to. I got to be nice to people on a daily basis.
Well, it's good for you to be nice. You know what? You're a nice person, and it's a side of you that you don't let your audience see. And I think you need to start letting your audience see how you treat your de facto kids and your de facto wife. It's about time the people get to see that. Okay.
I think my de facto wife would say it's time for her to be a real wife, so
I think
we're working on that.
It's about time.
Yeah, we're working on that.
She's wondering when that's going to happen.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Good. About time.
Yeah, so I think we'll see some movement. I would think that Bregman and Alonso want to get something wrapped up in the next couple of weeks. I don't, because Sasaki doesn't cost a lot of money, I don't think that he's holding up the hitters market. The potential pitching market, and there's a whole bunch of relievers out there and stuff like that. And if they haven't spent money, if they have money and they haven't been able to spend it, they should definitely look at adding some relievers to their bullpen because they were just going to try and piece it together and do their typical pick up guys off waiver claims and stuff and try and turn them into something, which is they've been good at it.
They have been very good.
I don't know if they'll lock Santos in a bubble for most of the season or spring training so he can be healthy. But yeah, I think we'll see some movement here in the next few weeks. I did joke though that, and Adam and I were talking about this, the next roster move will be a waiver claim of some sort, whether it's a reliever or maybe it's the catcher that the Dodgers just DFA'd. It was once their top prospect, somebody like that. That is another move that is viable in a sense. Like if the Mariners could try and still move Garver to a team in need of a backup catcher, eat half the money do it that way, as long as they were getting something that they felt was in return that could help them. You may have to package a prospect with him, but if you got a commensurate level prospect that was more MLB ready, then maybe you do that. There are a lot of teams that need catching. I mean, the Padres need catching. So I think there's ways to do that, but and maybe that's what they finally hope, is that somebody like the Twins, or because I think the White Sox have been pretty well picked clean, as have the Marlins, but maybe the Twins or even the Rockies, kind of decide, look, we need to make some trades. We need to trade some guys, and take on some prospects, and maybe that's the way they look. I don't know. As the Mariners, you're pissed, but I mean, if you're the Orioles fans, aren't you just as pissed? I mean, like they haven't addressed their pitching at all.
Sure. Well, that's been a rumor that's been out with the last, I think, 2 days, has been Luis Castillo to the Orioles. So there's something there. What would they be? What would you want back? Like, if you're the Mariners, you want what back for him? Let's say they deal with Baltimore.
So, like, everybody says Kobe Mayo or one of their prospects, and maybe you have to do that. Like, those guys are pretty close to being MLB ready. Like, I don't love the one outfielder, the left-handed hitting outfielder, bad body, but like, Jordan Westberg, maybe you can get that. He's a real major league talent. I don't, do you have to package something so that Baltimore takes on all the money? Like, do you have to package a prospect with him to get Westberg, and maybe like, is it a 1-for-1, or how do you do that? I mean, I don't think the Mariners want to trade Luis Castillo, and I don't feel like they feel like they have to trade Luis Castillo. But if they see an opportunity where they can get more than higher value in position player versus what he would bring to the pitching staff, then I think they'll do it. And that's, and it does free up some salary so that they could do something more with one of the remaining free agents.
When does the podcast with you, the Extra Innings podcast that you and Jude do, when does that come out?
Well, probably later today. I got to give blood and do a couple other things, so probably a little later today. I mean,
we'll be looking forward to it, and all the fabulous podcast platforms are out there. 2 of the very best, Divish and Jude, Extra Innings podcast. Find it everywhere you get your podcast. Seattle Times, seattletimes.com.
Why can't WSU just hire Brent Vegan away from Montana State? Why? Can you not help me out?
We'll see. I mean, Jimmy Rogers, though, he seems like a good guy, good coach.
Yeah, there's so many players from South Dakota State transferring there. They're going to start serving lutefisk and lefse at the games.
It's the worst thing about college football, because it's, a coach leaves and then your players get raided, and then what do? You could just go do the same thing. You just go raid a lesser team at a smaller division. They've got like 15 guys now. It's
Now that you're coaching,
stupid.
Now that you're coaching junior high basketball, I need you to go Mick Cronin on them.
Oh,
did you see that today?
I heard about. I didn't see the game, but I saw.
I watched the game and I knew it was coming because they were soft and they were getting beat. Like all this stuff. Because that's what made his teams good when he got, at Cincinnati, and when he got to UCLA, like they were more physical than everybody else.
He doesn't fit at UCLA. That's why he needs to go to a Midwest team.
Yeah,
he needs to get out of Los Angeles. Go coach a Midwest team with Midwest type players. Then he'll get back to like having guys that are tough. You can't be tough in powder blue. It's too hard.
It's so funny though. The soft. It's like that's like the worst thing you can be called in any sport is soft.
He does it every year, so he just got it out a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Every year it's the same rant. All right, well, look forward to the Extra Innings podcast with you and Adam Jude coming out later today on all the podcast platforms. Ryan Divish back with us. All right, stay warm, and we'll talk to you next week as we continue to dive in on the Mariners' cold stove. Thank you, Divish.
Yep, see ya.